Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff and Tam Cowan here with me on this Thursday. Great to have your company. And as ever, you can like, share and follow us on Facebook, and you can subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. And on that YouTube channel, if you go on your Sky network, if you have that, all you have to do is go down to apps, hit YouTube, and you get us on your big telly, as thousands upon thousands of people are doing. Lots of people sending us photographs, Ruffy, seeing you in that big ball face of yours with mine and Tam's up on the screen watching the programme. More and more people, we've got to thank them.
Yes, it's fantastic the way people have bought into what we've been doing right for the start. Obviously, you know, from far and wide, which makes it even better.
Really looking forward to today's show because we have a one-to-one with Dave Mackay. He's now the first-team coach at Dundee, but very pertinent to speak to him in this moment because, of course, Callum Davidson has been confirmed as the new manager of St Johnstone, Tam, for a 3-year deal.
Yep, and seems a good booking. There'd be wee shades there. I was talking to Mr. Cosgrove about this. Slight bit of maybe the think of the heart rule in the head, bringing in a guy like Callum Davidson, but not at all. I don't think he's been there and done it. He was a great Saints player. International class defender, of course, let's never forget that. Already done a bit of coaching there, and then he furthered his career down south. So I think he absolutely ticks all the right boxes. When I said about the heart rule and the head booking, Stuart had brought up the name John Connolly, Peter. When you remember, Roughie might even have played as a youngster alongside John Connolly. But that one didn't work out at St Johnstone. But this is totally different. And I think it looks like a quite exciting move. And I think now we can, you know, hopefully now they can let the cat out the bag and just give Tommy Wright the Northern Ireland job, you know, because he's no kidding on MD with that. That is clearly why he left, you know. There's no a bookie in the land would take money on Tommy being the next Northern Ireland manager. So just get on with it.
Yeah, and if he's not, he might be the Hearts manager. Who knows? These things take a twist along the way. Hi to Dougie, hi to Robert Grieve, Pat Burns, Michael McClay, John McClelland, Ian McDougall, Gary Goss, Stephen Middlemass, Scott Graham as well, Francis Priest from St Helens, no less. Great to have you on board with us, Francis. David McDivitt, Michael Clark, Mark McPhee, Tom Smith, and Gary Adam, and Alison, Sarah Carroll as ever, always with us, supporting us on our Facebook. Thank you to so many, Daniel McCormick and Paul Campbell, all joining us. Of course, we try and look at some of the positive aspects of Scottish football. We'll hear from Dave Mackay shortly in our one-to-one. We also will look back on this very day in 1982. Roughie was sweating at the start of a game, and believe me, he was sweating at the end of it as well. We'll talk about that specific game at the World Cup, as well as look back over last night's English Premier League matches, but talk about mainly the things that are happening in Scotland. And the worst one of all, just at the tail end of last night's programme, suddenly we have the joint release from Hearts and Partick Thistle. Your mob, Roughie, now in a situation where they're demanding £10 million in compensation combined. £2 million for you, £8 million for Hearts. This looks as if it's going to be in a quick court decision. They're looking for a response within the next 7 days from the SPFL as well. So this is an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it certainly is. I think some of the headlines this morning were a bit above board. Obviously, that's what you look for, a headline. But I think both clubs financially would like some compensation. I think that is worked out, Peter, by an individual panellist who, an analyst who looks at your income and your losses and everything, and he's the one who judges, you know, what you're going to lose out of this whole scenario. So I don't know what phase that is or what phase the attack is, but certainly, I said last night, I think once you go to court, there'll be a lot of questions getting asked. Some of the questions that we never really got the right answers to the last time, and we might get better idea this time. But certainly, I don't think Hearts or ourselves are going to let this one go. And to read that some of the other members are wanting to chip us out of the league and all that, they want to have a serious look at themselves. You know, they've been warned right for day one from Man Budge this is what she was going to do. She's not just made it up all of a sudden. You know, she gave them ample opportunity to make a reasonable and sensible decision, and they never did it. So I'll mend them.
Well, I must admit, I'm with you on the unfair relegation. Compensation has to be awarded. It's an absolute Stonewall certainty. But the other aspect of it, any journalist who heard from a chairman or a chief executive talking about throwing Hearts and Partick Thistle out of the league, I would have laughed in his face because of the ridiculous nature of that statement alone. But nevertheless, you'll get lots of scaremongering and stupid statements coming out from stupid people. But what I would say, Tam, is this one is not where we wanted to see the end game here. We're waiting to see what the SPFL is saying. And I've just had a story that's dropped on the Sun newspaper saying that Hearts, this court action is to stop, obviously, Dundee United, Wraith Rovers and Cove Rangers being promoted as well in this whole situation, because that's the fallout from the compensation. All these things will be called into question.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess. And as I've been saying all week, I just hope that if Hearts and Partick Thistle do go to court, they don't provide their own defence. Because you saw what they were like last season. But I think it is an absolute mess, Peter. First up, what I must say, I think it's very interesting to point out and remind ourselves of this, that it clearly wasn't the case that James Anderson was only going to pump his money into Scottish football if Hearts were saved, if Hearts were allowed league reconstruction. So I think fair play there first and foremost to Mr. Anderson, because there was still a lot of cynics out there who believed that he would have pulled the plug on that cash injection if Hearts were relegated. But I will stand up in court, Peter, for Hearts, for Partick Thistle, for Stranraer, for Brora, for Kelty. I have not wavered in my opinion one bit on this for weeks and weeks and weeks now. To punish clubs, to effectively punish clubs due to a global pandemic is just immoral. It is absolutely wrong. And I don't have a dug in this race, Peter. As you can see by my Davy Cooper Motherwell t-shirt, and I'm looking resplendent in it, my team's okay. We're looking for a European campaign. But as a neutral observer and as somebody who's got a huge interest in Scottish football as a whole, I would happily stand up in court and do anything that I think could help Hearts, Partick Thistle and all the others in this. It's an absolute shambles. And to throw a big club like Hearts, who I still believe would have escaped relegation if the season had been played to a conclusion, to throw Hearts into a league now, a big club like Hearts, a big business like Hearts, and you know the economic crisis that awaits us all, to chuck them into a league which isn't going to start until, at the very earliest, the end of October, and only have 27 games. It's ridiculous. You think of the money that Hearts are going to lose in terms of gate receipts, in terms of hospitality. You know, the hospitality, for example, that a club like Aberdeen or Hibs may bring to Tynecastle compared to one of their opponents in the Championship. I think they've got a great case. They deserve to be compensated. But typical of Scottish football, it seems this is a shambles. It's going to run and run and run. Whilst I may remind the pair of you, the fixtures are meant to come out next week. And where are we? We're no further forward.
Yeah, and because of the nature of this case, Roughie, obviously Hearts, Partick Thistle are looking for a quick reply. All that came out last night from the SPFL was an acknowledgement that they'd received it and they would look at it in legal terms before coming up with a response. And then, of course, this petition that's put forward at the Court of Session is against teams moving up and down the leagues. That will be on the agenda, I'm almost certain. Unless the SPFL suddenly are able to pacify both yourselves and, of course, let's not forget Stranraer in this. The one thing that really sticks in my throat, though, Roughie, is when that vote with 16 in favour of reconstruction was made and the others decided against it, boy, there's a few clubs in there have been telling porcupines about the way they were going to vote. You know, they'd say one thing in front of everybody and then do another thing behind the scenes. You know, the word despicable doesn't actually sum it up as much as it suited. I could think of a few other words, but there are two-faced people in there who would shake your hand and clearly do something else behind your back.
Yeah, I think for day one, I think all the clubs have been, sort of, not all of them, but most of them have been sticking together in some kind of groups. I think I saw a First Division chairman saying that he was in contact with a lot of the teams in two, and that's the way they were going to vote. So I think if you look at the 16 who voted, you could wheedle it down to who at least were maybe 12 or 13 of them are. So there was a firm stance here from whatever division you looked at. But I think the clubs, Hearts and Partick Thistle, have went to court. Obviously, I think the compensation is the big thing. But I think they're actually worried, Peter. I mean, some of the stuff that's been coming out of the board and everything, I think one of the biggest things, and this is just me that's saying this, I think I've got a funny feeling that because, as Tam said there's going to be a shortage of games, and I don't know how short first and second division is going to be. I think there could be somebody coming out there saying, oh, wait a wee minute, we're not playing enough games for promotion and relegation next year. So who's to say they don't bring that in once you're in that league? And who's to say that's 2 years you could be in that league instead of 1 year?
Yeah. And see, at a time as well, Peter, at a time when what all clubs need is, money coming in, be it with season tickets, virtual season tickets, whatever you call it, to basically cut off that enormous Hearts support. I'll stick with Hearts the now. I know that on their day, and certainly, out of all the non-top flight clubs, Roughie, that I thought Motherwell could maybe get drawn in the cup way at Fir Park, Partick Thistle would always be high on my list, because I know for a fact that the Thistle fans are out there, and they would still come in their numbers. But if I put the focus in Hearts now, that is, famously they talk about 16,000 Hearts fans that you can get packed into Tynecastle, full house, etc., season ticket holders, the same guys who pumped all the money into the club when they really needed it via the foundation of Hearts. What a way to treat supporters. And supporters' interests, I don't think, have come out in this at all. I've yet to hear anybody, any of the clubs or any of the SPFL board meetings even mentioning the fans. We never get quoted. We're just treated like mugs. We're expected just to go along and pay our season tickets. In this era, we're expected to pay these virtual season tickets. And you know what? If you wanted to start getting harsh with your clubs and saying, no, whoa, that's awfully good that you're saying that my season ticket will allow me to watch the games on a tablet, but that's not the same experience. Why are you not giving me a reduction in the price here? Because I'm not going to be at a live event sitting there watching live sport. But fans are decent that way. We don't pick up the clubs on that. Look how many fans have knocked back the opportunity to get a refund on season tickets for last year. At every club just about throughout the leagues now, they've all been out there, club chairman with a big Bambi eye saying, oh, if you take the refunds for last season, it'll cost the club £140,000 or whatever. And they know fine well that the vast majority of fans are not going to do that. So we're treated like mugs. That's the bottom line. And the Hearts fans here, the Partick Thistle fans, all the way down to the Kelty and Brora fans who had put money into their clubs over the past year, expecting that they would ultimately get a crack at a playoff with the bottom team in League Two for a hope of that wee shot at glory in the senior leagues. It's an absolute shambles, and the whole of Scottish football should be embarrassed.
Yeah, Arthur Hastings says, I think we just need to move on. Arthur, we'd love to move on, but unfortunately, this is an ongoing situation of madness. And there's further twists that I would suggest along the way, Roughie, because we've had Hibs talking about player wage cuts. There is the possibility that they will look to sell some of their star players. Aberdeen's Dave Cormack has come out. They've released a statement today. This is what they had to say on possible wage cuts for their players throughout this period. The board has pledged to do what it can to safeguard jobs, protect those on lower incomes, ensure the economic viability of the club and support the community. Our initial assumptions were that we get back to playing football in front of crowds in September. The reality is we face playing games behind closed doors and perhaps with limited crowds until at least January. We said at the start no club could withstand a collapse of income that extended beyond September. Back playing in front of fans, hopefully in January 2021, will mean a 10-month period with limited income. income. The financial situation we therefore face is stark. I'm confident that the board, management, staff and players will continue to pull together to do what's best for the club. Well, if that's the financial state, Roughie, of Aberdeen, I don't see them signing anybody like Johnny Hayes on a new 2-year deal because he's out of contract. You don't sign players when you're telling everybody to take a wage cut. So if Aberdeen are looking at it and saying there's big problems ahead, I wonder, Roughie, if the other twist on the way, and I've heard, as you mentioned as well, I wonder if some clubs are going to say, well, we actually can't afford to play players and pay them to start a season anyway.
Yeah, well, if you look at obviously every club's wages are different. There's a scale from X to Y or whatever, and I would imagine the average wage at Aberdeen might be, £3,000 a player? Now, for me, that's $250,000 a month. That's $250,000 a month, and that might just be an estimate. And if you start adding that up, that's an awful lot of money just for a club at Aberdeen. And I'm sure Hibs and I'm sure Motherwell boys are on a good wage as well. And even if it was 150, you were getting 1,000, you were getting hit for a month. It's still too much over. You don't even know when the fans are going to be in, and you're adamant it's not going to be after Christmas. So that's a hell of a lot of money that you're doing the drain.
And you know what, Peter? That's why it's even more ridiculous. The clubs who basically effectively voted against the idea of reconstruction. Because if Dave Cormack, the picture he's painting at Aberdeen, that I'm guessing that statement or a very, very similar statement could have come out from any top club chairman. So we're on the same boat meant to be. And this is where, don't let any of them kid you on, it isn't about self-preservation. That's what it's been since day one. If they're painting such a gloomy picture, you think, how could they ever in their heart, how could they ever in their soul have even contemplated telling Hearts, no, beat it, you're relegated, rather than us being able to reshuffle the leagues and keep Hearts in the top flight, keep Partick Thistle in the second top flight, and so on down the leagues. It makes it even worse in my book. They're now absolutely crying their eyes out where they had the opportunity to at least try and kind of save effectively other clubs. It leaves such a bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah, Tam, this has got another twist and turn ahead. Believe me, we're about to witness it over the next 4 or 5 days. And there's either going to be a climb down or there's going to be an admission from other clubs of the misery they're facing. And then, that might be to the benefit of Hearts and Partick Thistle. But I'm telling you, watch this space and what's unfolding as people realise also the other thing about it. And I've spoken to people who think, well, once we get to phase 3 and everybody's out, we'll all go back to normal. We won't go back to normal because we're looking at an economic downturn here. We're looking at people with no jobs, no money, and wondering, where their next meal's coming from, never mind where the next season ticket's coming from. So it's a difficult period ahead, and I have great sympathy for clubs. And I would acknowledge the fact that we've had on this programme people, and including Les Gray, who said that the lower league clubs cut their cloth accordingly and are resilient. And there's a few lower league clubs who've got wealthy owners in there who can keep them, afloat on the limited budgets they have. But for a long period of time, to head to January, we've got a few twists and turns still to come on this. And thanks to so many people for giving us their thoughts on this. I mean, I'm with Tam, I'm with Roughie on it, and I don't have any kind of allegiance because of our friendships. I've been like this from the start. On this programme, I've said, save Hearts, save Thistle, save Stranraer, taking it in the neck for it. But we've got to save them and change it because of the situation we're in. But now we're going down a legal case. And you remember, by the way, when we were at the start of what we were looking at, a pandemic, we were all fighting. Scottish football was fighting then, and it's still fighting now. One ridiculous thing happens after another. Listen, some positive stuff.
And
I'll tell you what,
Peter, if you think it's a mess just now, I'm hearing reports that when Scottish football does start back, we're going to introduce Hawkeye.
Yeah. Yes, yes. I'm desperate to get your thoughts on that. I mean, I watched it last night. I will talk about it in a minute. But wait a minute. On the basis that, just on the point of what we're talking about of how desperate it is, here's a statement that came out from Hearts based on fans with a chance to donate to the club as well. Not only have we got James Anderson, everyone at Hearts would like to say a massive thank you to our fans for the remarkable level of support they've shown over the past few months. 7,000 have purchased season tickets. For what campaign? I do not know, I have to say, but I'm going to read on. Almost 7,000 of you have purchased season tickets for the 2021 campaign. Foundation of Hearts has also had exceptional backing. Since football stopped, there have been almost 2,000 new pledges. We've been contacted by a huge number of fans to ask if there is a way to directly contribute to the club in an effort to help alleviate the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're touched by this generosity, and should any supporters wish to make a contribution to the club's accounts, then our details are as follows. We can't thank you enough for your unwavering support. Together, we focus on one thing and one thing only Hearts. Well, I have to say, the Hearts fans have been absolutely magnificent, Roughie. They've made donations to other clubs. Thistle fans have made donations to Stranraer as well. There is a solidarity among supporters that is lacking among clubs and the leaders of those clubs.
Yeah, I think Tam's hit it in the head. You know, I think we all know how much the real supporters who go and support your club really love the club. They do anything for them, and that I would say that's most of the clubs. And it's very noticeable that that's what they've been doing. I mean, I don't know where they're getting their money from, but they're certainly pledging as much as they can, you know, and it helps a long way. They just want to see their club keep going. You know, they've probably been supporting the club for years and years, and they don't want to see any harm to it. So, no, that's what Scottish football does. It brings everybody together, and that's why it's important that we try and get back on the right track.
Yeah, okay. Listen, Callum Davidson was unveiled as the new manager of St Johnstone on a 3-year deal. And of course, he's 43 and said that it was a job that he just couldn't turn down. Well, I had a quick chat today with one of his former teammates, who is, of course, a St Johnstone legend, lifted the cup with them, the former St Johnstone captain, Dave Mackay, to get his thoughts on Dundee and, of course, St Johnstone's new man, because he knows him well. Well, I'm delighted to say our special guest on the programme today is a St Johnstone legend, the former captain of the Saints. Dave Mackay is with us now, a coach at Dundee. I would imagine you're itching to get back to it, but the championship has to wait to get the all clear, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. I think everybody's in the same boat, whether it's in the sport industry or any sort of industry at the minute. Everybody's just waiting for the green light to get going again, and obviously it's understandable the situation we're in at the minute, that we can't rush into it. But now we're starting to see the Premiership teams starting back, and hopefully we won't be too far behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a hectic 3 months. Unbelievable, the events that have unfolded. Did you, as an individual, and James, want to see reconstruction?
I didn't really have any say. I don't believe James probably had much of a say as well. That's up to the owners and the people that run the club. And yeah, although I do think it's not the worst scenario we have at the minute, the way the league structures are, but for the sake of everybody in the circumstances, the way that the league's finished, then possibly might have been a chance to get reconstruction on the board and try and make it a little bit fairer for everyone.
Yeah, the nightmare scenario is we've got Hearts and Partick Thistle going to court. The last thing I want to see, and I was wondering, if this goes down the road that I think it might, the doomsday scenario is quite simply Hearts and Partick Thistle stop the start of the season, which would, I think, be catastrophic for clubs financially.
It would be. Yeah, I think everybody's been hit so far. It's been a nightmare, the period that we've missed. So if it's goes on even longer, then the situation could become catastrophic for some teams. So, yeah, it's not an ideal situation. You can understand why Hearts and Partick Thistle feel that way, because the situation they were in, they weren't too far off, especially Partick Thistle's situation. They were extremely close to Queen of the South, so they would have felt they had a real chance of getting out of it, as would have Hearts. So you can understand why they're really frustrated, they're angered, but also the effect that this is potentially going to have on every club in the country. it's going to be far-reaching, and yeah, you hope one way or another it gets concluded quickly, but when it's going through courts and stuff, then I don't believe that will be the situation.
Switching to a more positive subject, one of your old teammates has landed the big job at your old club. Callum Davidson, now the manager. What do you make of the appointment?
I think it's a perfect position for Callum. He's a perfect candidate. As soon as it came up, you're thinking if Callum wants a job, then he would be the ideal man for it. And I'm delighted he's got it. I messaged him this morning and he seems very keen and he's delighted to take up his first role as a manager. He served his time. I think he's been an assistant for 6-7 years now, so he must feel the time's right to leave a good job down at Millwall to come back up. And obviously he's got a close relationship with Tommy. He'll know the sort of squad that he's inheriting as well. And obviously he's got a working relationship with the chairman, the board of directors there, as well as a lot of the players. So I'm sure a lot of them will be delighted he's back, as well the fans. He seems like the ideal man to take over from Tommy and try and progress even further.
What are his qualities? You know him better than most.
I think just the type of guy he is. He's a bubbly character, he's infectious, he just loves football, loves talking about football. He's somebody that enjoys having a laugh and a joke, but also when he's out in the training pitch and obviously Saturdays, then he's a totally different character. He's switched on, he wants things done right, he wants everything done at a tempo. And I think players loved his coaching sessions. He's just a very likeable character as well, but he's somebody that you always felt would go into management one day, and he's obviously felt this is the right time and the right club for him, and hopefully that's the case.
You mentioned his association with Tommy. It's a hard act to follow, isn't it?
It is, yes. It couldn't have been a tougher time. It's all one with Sir Alex Ferguson. Whoever took over after him, it was going to be such a difficult task. And Tommy was the man that brought their only piece of silverware to the club, or obviously in terms of one of the big cups. And so, in the amount of top six finishes, European campaigns, it's going to be an extremely tough challenge for him. But again, he was a big part of that as well. He spent 5 years or so with Tommy during the club's most successful spell. So he'll know the sort of challenge that he's got, but he obviously feels confident that he can continue the work that Tommy had done.
Are you surprised nobody's tried to snatch Tommy up as a manager?
Yeah, it's one of the big mysteries of football, that you see loads of managers getting moves who've done a fraction of the job that Tommy done at St Johnstone. So we always found it strange, even when I was playing there, you're thinking when a job came up that this could be the one for Tommy to get linked with at least. And it was just strange that he never got a big move, considering the job that he'd done year after year and the budget that we had. Who knows now? He's obviously left St Johnstone, whether he's got something lined up or he's obviously available now, that I'm sure any time a job comes up, Tommy will be heavily linked with it now.
Yeah, I was looking at the Hearts situation. Boy, if they get rid of Daniel Stindl, I think Tommy Wright would be the ideal candidate. He just knows what it's all about to handle all the pressures of a club like Hearts. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously, you don't really want to speak too much when somebody's already in a position, but yeah, you hear rumours coming out of Hearts, whether they're true or not, I don't know. But a sort of job like that, one of the bigger clubs in Scotland, then I think Tommy's earned the right to get a crack at a job like that, and he certainly wouldn't be fazed by it. He knows Scottish football inside out now. He's been here for the best part of a decade, and a job like that or something similar would certainly be one that you'd imagine one he would be linked with, and two that he could handle the situation no problem.
Dave, final point, and I think it's all about ambition. I know James very well. He's a great lad, and your team will definitely, once you find out what format the league is in and when it can kick off, are you looking now and thinking this is going to be the year we make the push to try and get back to the top flight?
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, it was a bit of a mixed season. We didn't start the season too well. It took us a while to get into our stride, but from January onwards, we managed to get some more players in and rectify the areas that we felt were possibly a little bit weak in. Then we started to hit a bit of form, and we were in our best run of form just as obviously the pandemic struck. So yeah, we're excited to get into next season. It was a pretty tough year last season, but this season yeah, we've got that 12 months experience under our belts. We know the league inside out. We know the type of players that you require for that. And in this season, we'll be expecting to make a real tilt for the championship, whether Hearts are in it or whatever the league setup is in. We still expect to be up there challenging and trying to get back to where we think we belong.
Fingers crossed, Dave, that you are indeed up there challenging and back in the top flight. We need the likes of Dundee up there. It's a great club with a great history. As ever, to you and your family, from everybody here in the Football Show, thanks for joining us and stay safe.
You too, Peter. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Good man, Dave Mackay. Always got a lot of time for him. Really good lad. I'm going to read out some of the reaction we've got to the chat so far. Dougie Lidl says, do clubs not have a duty to look after their shareholders by law? Yes, they do. They have a duty to their shareholders to run the club in a proper manner. But the clubs are all part, I would suggest, Roughie, of a group of people and a business with members who operate in a league system where you would hope that they are governed also by their morals as well, and the ability to look for the betterment of the league itself as well as their individual clubs.
Yeah, I think Dave Winnie touched on that yesterday. He had looked through the rule book and picked up a few things, and that was one of them, that the fellow members should be looking after each other. I think some of the words he used were there should be good faith between all the teams, there should be fairness between all the teams, and that seemingly has went right out the book as far as we're concerned just now. So these, I think, when this goes to court, I think it's going to be really interesting, some of the issues that are brought up, and I'm sure a lot of people won't like what they're going to hear.
Yeah, and Derek Duffy says, Peter's obsessed with reconstruction after the interview where Les Gray gave him an education. Derek, your head's in the clouds, son. It was an interview to get his insight into what was going on in this from an SPFL board member. And he thinks we use over-exaggerated language. Well, I don't know how over-exaggerated we can get on two clubs taking the SPFL to court. And certainly there's been no over-exaggeration over the last couple of months on what's been unfolding. You know, the whole situation here, I think there's a few twists and turns, as I've suggested, will undoubtedly come with this one. And we wait to see exactly how it all unfolds. Tam, you've got something in your head there?
Yeah, I'm just saying that, you know, there's always going to be accusations aimed at people in the media about them having a vested interest, etc. Right? We know that Roughie, quite rightly, he's a Partick Thistle legend. He's a director of the club. He's going to stick up for the Jags. But neither you nor myself, Peter, as I mentioned earlier, do have a dug in this race. You know, none of the clubs that we feel passionately about are involved in this. It's Hearts, Partick Thistle, Stranraer, and all the way down to Kelty and Brora. And I think we're just trying to look for a bit of fairness. And if it was Hibs, for example, Hearts' great rival, I would be still on my soapbox about this and demanding what's right for Hibs. If it was, I don't know who's currently deemed Partick Thistle's big rival, if it's Greenock Morton or if it's Clyde or whatever's deemed the derby, but if it was one of their rivals, I'd be shouting just as loudly for them, because it's just an absolute mess. And I just can't believe that for everything that the Hearts fans have already been through, the way that they picked their club up and dusted them down again, allowing Hearts to move forward after the Vladimir Romanov era, here because of something that was not their fault, not their club's fault, not Scottish football's fault, but here because of a global virus, they are now facing a stark future. Primarily of no games, and then being in a league which is only going to be 27 games long, when they are a huge business, and this is us in an economic crisis. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic, and there is still plenty of time for a rethink. I did mention that the fixtures were scheduled to come out next week. There's still no guarantee, incidentally, that everybody seems to have it in their head now that we're starting back in August the 1st. I will remind you, as Professor Jason Leach said to us 2 weeks ago on Off the Ball, he could only lightly pencil in the idea of an August the 1st start for the Scotland's top flight. When we asked him again about it last week, because we always like getting a weekly update about how his views may have changed, how the facts and figures at his disposal may have changed, and he said he was slightly more confident of an August the 1st start, but he'd leave it at that. Bearing all that in mind, there's clearly no guarantee that we are going to start on August the 1st, which is still a month and a half away. We do have time to knock a few heads together at the SPFL and fix this before the civil war continues into next year.
Yeah, thanks very much to lots of people commenting on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know about you, Roughie, since we've gone into lockdown and we've started to really have huge figures of people following us with this show in its current format, and obviously I'm relating more and more to fans who are giving us their opinion. There's a real split. You tend to get Facebook people who have accounts, who are passionate about their club, putting across lots of very, very good points. I'm not quite sure that there's a higher percentage who are watching on YouTube, Roughie, who have that same, I don't know, moral compass is probably the best way I can sum it up, because quite simply, some of them don't have their real names, and then they post a bit of bile, and some people do. Barry Hart says, neither have a chance in the courts. Let them burn their money and see them drop another league. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, there are some people, Roughie, that it destroys your faith in, a human being when you hear some people's attitude to it all.
Yeah, I would agree with that. People don't listen to the reasons. I mean, Tam's been very vocal, being a Motherwell supporter, and the demise of what's going to happen to Hearts and Partick Thistle, and it's just not thinkable. And I've said this on numerous occasions that unfortunately, and I really put the onus onto the Premier League with this one, because I think they're the ones who call the shots. Obviously, with their 11-1 vote, but we have a new Sky deal in place. I'm sure that must be much better than the one that we had. So that's a lot more money coming into the game. My opinion is, if you add another 2 teams to that league, if I was in that league already, I would take the assumption that gives me a bit of breathing space with another 2 teams in there. I might not be down the bottom of the league all the time. I might be 3rd or 4th bottom, but at least my players maybe be able to handle that. So from that aspect, I couldn't see why they never voted for that either. So yeah. It's a terrible one, and that's why I said when that 26 voted, I really do think the board should have, asked for them. They must give a reason of why, and then we all could see where the sense is in Scottish football, because I'm sure some of the reasons would have been absolutely shaking your head at, because I don't think enough of them had a logical reason to vote that way.
Yeah,
can I ask you, Peter? Do we know? Who was in favour of what? Or is it top secret?
No, I mean, there are certain, strands of the story coming out of certain clubs voting one way then the other. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have the list here because I didn't want to get into a situation where we start to speculate on certain clubs that have said something which, as you know, in this industry, there can be a lot of what I would call fake news and things thrown up there. What I would say to you, Roughie, is I think you're being slightly naive on the hope that clubs would have come out and given a reason for why they voted a certain way, because half of them couldn't. Roughie, let's be wise about this. Half of them wouldn't even be able to tell you if it was daylight outside. Yeah. They'd make up a PR statement based on something that wouldn't get them criticised, but it would look good towards their fans. The amount of clubs who do PR and make moves in the SPFL just to pacify their fans is unbelievable. So for you to think that they're going to come out and say, we voted this way because of this, half of them are a bunch of shysters. They're shameful in the way they go about their business here.
Well, Peter, what does that say about Neil Doncaster? Neil Doncaster, who said well, wait a minute, let me finish. Neil Doncaster said he had, phoned all the clubs. That's 42 of them, and he'd been given reasonable advice that this decision, is worthwhile looking at. And then we come to the decision, and there's only 16. So who was he talking to? Who was telling them, we're going to have a look at this?
Well, Roughie, that's not Neil Doncaster's fault that the whole place is full of two-faced morons. Do you know what I mean? That's the nature of it, Roughie. The last 3 months is the evidence of that. If you ask one person what way is he going to do something, the next minute he changes his mind.
Yeah.
It's a nonsense to think that anybody's going to be starting to show any modicum of sporting integrity. Get real on this. At the end of the day, he's probably phoned them and said, what do you think about this? And they say, we're starting to look at it. This is dire, no fans. It's unfair on Hearts. It's unfair on Thistle and Stranraer. I think we'll look at this. 2 minutes later, boom, phone down. Let's have a look at our own accounts. Let's look at this. No, we're not going to do it. And I know chairmen who've said they're not going to do it because they want Celtic and Rangers up for the extra game. Now, we've had a couple of people on here saying they've got to have the interests of their own club at heart. Absolutely. But how far in the water do you need to sink before you eventually share, the lifeboat with someone to help them out of it? How far do you have to go down protecting your own interests when somebody else is drowning 2 meters away from you?
Yeah,
Peter, the only positive I would take out of it now is that you're not hearing club chairmen and club representatives, unlike their outpourings earlier in this lockdown, you're not hearing them now ending every quote with, and for the good of Scottish football. They clearly know that we have seen right through them with it, so they at least were smart enough to drop that from their spiel they throw out there in the media. So, I just hope in some shape or form, if Hearts and the others are going to take this to court, so be it. It'd be great to think common sense could still prevail. But I kind of think now the only thing that's going to put all the mess on the back burner is if we are actually able to start football, because we'll be slavering at the prospect to actually seeing a Scottish game. And I think only then, if there has to be this backdrop of a legal challenge, which will eventually in some shape or form be decided by money, and that's what it's all about, let's be blunt about that, then I think the only thing it can maybe take an eye off that and maybe put half a smile on our face is getting the rest of the football back. But I maintain that there is time to sort this mess out, to go for reconstruction, to give everybody a shake in Scottish football, and then, whenever it might be, start season 2020, 2021, with us all singing for the same hymn sheet. It is still possible.
Yeah, well,
Peter,
I think you've been slightly over-optimistic, and I'd love to think that was the case.
Can you imagine the scenario of 6 or 7 of these clubs for the bottom division say, look, we're a part-time club. We can't afford to play players, if we're not getting any crowd in. So we're just going to bin it and give us a shout next January or February when you're going to start the league and people can pay in. What do you do then?
Well, Roughie, that's happening. No, that's happening right now, Roughie, because today they've been asked by the SPFL, the League One and League Two clubs have been asked today, when do you think you're going to be able to start? And there are 3 options: August, October, or January. And there is even a suggestion that if some clubs say they can't start and they're going to have to mothball themselves for a period of time, they're looking at some kind of truncated league between League One and League Two of the clubs that can play. That's where we're at, Roughie.
But that puts me back to what I said at the beginning of the show. If it's that kind of league, how can you have promotion and relegation if half of the teams aren't taking part?
Well, I would say this to you, Roughie, and I agree with you on all the things that you're putting across. The only thing I would state, Tam, is we're going to have to stick to the narrative, and I think day by day we'll lose it at times. I can understand Roughie giving a broader picture on what's going to happen with League One, League Two, some clubs that won't actually be able to fulfil their fixtures. But the narrative here is quite simply that Hearts and Partick Thistle, as they have done over a period of time, long before we got to the vote on reconstruction, now feel unfairly relegated in the circumstances that were there. That's the argument they're going to have to try and win for compensation. But secondary to that, the argument that they're going to also try and win in a court over a short period of time coming up is, by the way, you can't have promotion and relegation in this situation because it's unfair to us and we are getting a huge penalty. That's the argument.
Yeah, that is the argument. You're right. You're absolutely right. And if the be-all and end-all is compensation, because playing devil's advocate for a minute, rather than just shouting the case for Hearts and Partick Thistle and supporting those clubs, as I have been doing for weeks and weeks now, if I was playing devil's advocate, I would say, well, it is a democracy, and for whatever reason or not, then the majority of the clubs didn't fancy the idea of reconstruction. So I'm really, really sorry, Hearts and Partick Thistle, but yet you are relegated. But if that is the case and they are relegated, then we can't expect them to lose out twice. We can't expect them not to be compensated. I mean, that has got to be addressed, and it shouldn't even be gone to the courts. The compensation should be a gimme. You know, and even if it meant, even if the SPFL were skint and they said, right, you know what, we'll go back to James Anderson and we'll say whatever the total money that Hearts and Partick Thistle are looking for, James, can you give us a loan of that money, an interest-free loan, and we will pay you back when football is fully back up and running in Scotland. Something's got to be done. I just think with anything, we've had too much of this for day one, Peter, that is dragged on and on and on. With votes, with the SPFL, with dossiers, with this, that and the other. And it just absolutely wears you down at a time when we're all wanting the football back. I was out at Fir Park on Monday, Peter, and again, I try to be optimistic about all things. I was out there at Fir Park on Monday to have a meeting, and you both know her, with Suzanne, the commercial manager at Motherwell, and trying to keep our fingers crossed and put an upbeat tone in our voice. The reason for our meeting was hoping that we can get some events arranged, fundraising events back at Fir Park when this season does start, and we were trying to remain upbeat. But then, in terms of how much you want the football to come back, I then sneaked a wee visit to my normal seat that I sat in at Fir Park. And the tears were nearly streaming down my face because I was thinking, when will I next be sitting in this seat? And whenever it is, when will I have my mates to the side of me, my mates to the front of me, the couple of idiots down to the left that always shout at the manager and shout at the players? When will I see it? It's all part of football. When will I see that again? And it was a very, very, you know, a very teary afternoon. I must be brutally honest, and I think if the guys who are purportedly running Scottish football stop for a minute to remember just what the game means to so many people, to so many supporters in Scotland, and the very fact that we've already been put through the mill, how they could inflict any further misery on primarily here the Hearts and the Partick Thistle fans, it absolutely beggars belief. It really does.
Yeah. And the other thing, Roughie, and I don't know if you picked up on it there, Roughie, but it was a vital point that Tam made, and I've written it down. Obviously, Tam has been talking with Suzanne about crucial events that could take place, and I've written down, obviously, we're Tam's pals. If we're involved in these events, Roughie, you know, as like co-speakers and hosts. I'm just saying, Roughie, you know, because
absolutely,
it's slim pickings.
I was just wondering if Tam was still going to his wine club in that part in the morning.
Well done, Roughie, for an in joke that nobody else gets. The other thing I was going to say to you guys, you know, well, listen, we wait to see. Thank you to so many people who are obviously. You know, some people are not having it. They just want Hearts down, and Thistle and got on with it and move on. So that's fine. You know, we like to, and everybody's entitled to their opinion on this. I am not saying for a minute that because we are all united on this show for the plight of Hearts and Partick Thistle and Stranraer, that, you know, other people may well have legitimate points, and we've tried to highlight as many of them as possible over the course of the 3 months. We don't all agree. And we can't lose, faith in it just because your opinion doesn't agree with ours, because that's the joy of football. And as Les Gray pointed out on the programme the other day there, yes, even chairman, chief executives, board members, all disagree, but it doesn't affect your overall attitude to try and work together. And that's what we hope some kind of peace might break out here from this madness of the last 3 months. Now, quick couple of things I want to get your thoughts on, guys. I've spotted there, sooner or later, I think in the next 24 hours, Daniel Stendhal might find out what's going to happen to him, Roughie, for the Hearts job. I was just wondering, I mentioned Tommy Wright because I think my number one choice would be Robbo for the Hearts job. But he's signed another 2-year deal at Inverness. Whether they're just ring fencing him for compensation, who knows? Tommy Wright, great candidate. I noticed Neil McCann's name in some of the papers today. I don't think that would be that's not what Hearts need at the moment. No harm to Neil, good lad that he is, but I don't see it being someone who's not really cut it at one club going into the nightmare at the moment that Hearts are having.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the time for an old head. Somebody's been round the block, somebody who actually knows what Scottish football's all about. He'll know most of the players, obviously coming up against him with St Johnson. So, no, he would be ideal, obviously, if he's not targeted for the Irish job. But you're right, they will have to make some kind of decision pretty soon. I know there's not much happening with players, but there's training will have started, and as Tam said, there'll be a fixture list going out there. So the sooner they come to a decision, the better, and for the players and for the manager himself.
Yep,
and again,
okay.
Peter, if Hearts are again in the Championship, you're hoping there's not going to be fans driven away. You're going to need to encourage every Hearts fan under the sun to get along to the games. So Stendhal does go, I would suggest, a managerial duo to replace him of Neil Doncaster and Albert Kidd. I think you'll get crowds of about 300,000 every other week at Tynecastle.
Yeah, well, to be fair, we're now no strangers to protesters protesting about everything and anything, so why not? The other thing I was talking about, guys, and I know, Tam, you're not a fan of the English Premier League, but I thought I would watch it last night. The first game was ranked rotten, Roughie, Aston Villa against Sheffield United, but it did provide us with the moment where I'm thinking to myself, no, surely not. Hawkeye, the keepers. I mean, I think the manager of Sheffield United summed it up beautifully when he said the keeper's halfway into the Holt end with the ball in the back of the net, and they still couldn't see it.
Yeah, I was absolutely amazed. I never get the chance to see what the referee's excuse was. Obviously,
well, he's watched
lack of communication.
Yeah, he's watched buzz. Michael Oliver,
was he not watching the game?
Well, that's what I was hoping for. And what was the linesman doing as well? Tammy's so far back in the goal.
No. Wait a minute. I know I always defend our match officials, but if you're now in a situation where in English football they've got Hawkeye, they've had VAR introduced and all the rest of it, if there's a 50-50 decision which is kind of ball-hair proportions, do you think a referee or his linesman are ever going to get involved when they think that they have the technology that is meant to see this unerringly? So don't ever go at the match officials there. Basically, whoever was in charge of Hawkeye, I'm guessing, had been drinking as much as the rest of us during lockdown and taking his eye off the ball. He couldn't hit the right button because he was still japed for the night before. But then you get this farcical thing. There was some small print or whatever in the deal that why VAR couldn't step in and make the decision for them. It was an absolute mess. But what I would say, Peter, yes, the game was absolutely dire. But you couldn't beat that for a wee bit of an incident just to really, really whet the appetite again, because it's getting closer. I mean, when the German football came back, I kind of shrugged my shoulders. Big deal. I'm not remotely interested. La Liga, all of that stuff. Who cares? But then suddenly when it got a wee bit closer to us, just across the border, the English football last night, I was genuinely excited by it. And as I was saying, in fact, to a news reporter on the BBC last night, at 5-6 as the countdown began to the big kickoff, I remember what my wee lassie's face was like in 2015 when we took her into the Magic Kingdom at Disney World for the first time ever. My face was like that last night, Peter. I honestly, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. I'm going to be able to watch. Yes, it was Aston Villa against Sheffield United, and ordinarily, I wouldn't even watch 30 seconds of highlights of a game like that. But I was absolutely buzzing last night. You were watching for what the social distancing was going to be like. I don't think it was great, because as you saw, there maybe wasn't the handshakes and the hugs, but the opposing managers in the technical areas and their coaches and that at the start, they were still giving each other a wee pat on the shoulder and jokingly doing the elbow thing. You're not meant to do the elbow thing. That was 100 days ago you were meant to do the elbow thing. So there were a few flaws there. But for the sheer spectacle, the countdown on the screen to the kickoff, and then irrespective your thoughts politically and all the rest of it, when they all took a knee. I mean, I'll be honest, that was a goosebumps moment when it was beautifully choreographed. The players and the referee had clearly mentioned it between them at the start, because the first whistle was blown and then the image it would get up on the screen, beautifully choreographed, they went straight into it. Now, can you imagine if one of the bandits who was about to kick off when everybody was on their knee, if he'd have blasted it into the goal with an open goal gaping, there would have been a fiery start to the British football. But no, I thought it was great. But you know what? We were then, it reverted to type last night. I'm sorry, you couldn't make it up. A 0-0 game, and it was absolutely dire. So even though I watched all the preamble with Jamie Carragher and the rest of the pundits and that, I was sitting there, like a wee Doug that's transfixed by the TV screen. I couldn't take my eyes off it. But 15, 20 minutes into the game, click, I was looking for an old Room 101 or something on UK Gold.
Yeah, Roughie, the one thing that was funny, Alec Kelly, who's a regular on our Facebook feed, mentioned there, he says the referee reminded him of Les Mottram. That goal was scored at Firhill, Roughie. Do you remember?
Yeah,
I can't remember who was the other team, but it was in the back of the net and come back out.
Yeah, it was in
Dundee United.
It was in the back of the net, and it came out, and the defender picked it up, and then he kicked it out for a throw.
The defender actually handed it to his goalkeeper.
And
they still played on.
I think that was one of Les's last games. I think that went extremely against him.
Really?
And the powers that
really?
be. Yeah.
Yeah, funny that, eh? Anyway, apart from anything else, a couple of things that we want to talk about. Thank you very much to lots of people who are sending us messages saying they're enjoying the show on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you. Like, share and follow us, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you get a chance. Well, it doesn't seem to affect the money in England, because Chelsea have signed Timo Werner for £53 million, and he'll be on £170,000 a week. I wonder if they'll call him in and say, "Look, we know we signed you last week, but can you take half wages now because we're cutting back?" But 170 grand a week.
And there you go, Peter. Sorry, that is in the same. I know it's a different club, but that's 2 weeks after it was reported that Spurs have borrowed, what was it, 175 million. To
the bank.
And there's their London rivals spending that sort of money, that sort of wages on a player. It's absolute nuts. I thought this would have seen the English clubs calming their jets a wee bit, but it clearly isn't having that effect at all.
No. And the other thing I think last night, which really kind of restored my faith in, sometimes the gloss is actually better than the product that you're watching, had to be the defensive show from David Luiz, Roughie, because he was just having a mare. I mean, if I was him, I'd have walked off before I started to foul the guy, because he was rotten.
It took me weeks and weeks to convince you that he is a bomb scare. He is your ultimate bomb scare. He is. And right away back to that World Cup final.
Take me weeks. He was woeful for Brazil. He didn't need to convince me.
How much money did he go to Paris Saint-Germain for?
Millions. Absolutely millions. And Chelsea have signed him twice. Chelsea have signed him twice, Roughie. I mean, it's rank rotten.
Unbelievable.
But there again, mediocre players will end up being multimillionaires. Couple of quick points. Tam, there's one thing that I think is a good step in the right direction here. And again, it's because, not so much in Scotland, because I still think we have to embrace it. That's a stonewall certainty, because Kevin Harper has mentioned his plight in it. But I genuinely think that, up here in Scotland, I think we really have to try and look at this Rooney Rule. The PFA in England are calling for the loophole on the Rooney Rule to be closed. And it means that if anybody's going in for a job, you have to interview, if there is a list, not if they're going to target one man, but if there's a list of candidates that are going to be interviewed, you must interview a black, Asian and ethnic minority. I think we should do that in Scotland and close the loop, make sure that loophole doesn't exist here as well. But down south, and the reason why I say not as much in Scotland has this gone on, is because there's a greater amount of people who feel wronged by it in England. But up here, Kevin Harper rightly pointed out, and has done on several occasions on our show, I think we've got to listen to, get more Asians and ethnic minorities and black people involved so they feel confident enough to go and get these jobs, because for me, there's no doubt that the talent's out there. But I don't know if that loophole is here in Scotland, but if it is, we need to close that as well so that everybody gets a fair crack at a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't even need to debate this one. I think MDP are with half a brain in their head. They can look at the bigger picture and say, yeah, just get on with it and listen to the people who have been there and know about it, and listen to people like Kevin Harper, who, as has been well documented with Kevin throughout his career, throughout his life, he has seen what racial prejudice is all about. So, yeah, I think for your average Scottish football fan who knows the score and has got a half-sensible head screwed on their shoulders, you almost don't need to debate this one. It's an absolute gimme.
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
think, Peter, if you pay the vast amounts of money to get your A licence and you go through the A licence, once you've got your licence, you should automatically be interviewed for any job that you apply for.
That's a good shout, Roughie. It's a good shout because you've gone through the whole process, and then over and above that, I have to say to you that there is an element of the person and their career that will undoubtedly come into it when people who are of a certain stature go for jobs. That's right. But I think what you just said there is something that should also be taken into consideration if they have gone through that process, which is very expensive at the A licence level. Then they should get the interview, and then from there it's every man and woman for himself.
What was your take, Peter? Peter, what was your take on John Barnes's comments? Because a few of my pals who support Celtic, they were a wee bit put out by them, shall we say?
Well,
he started bringing,
to be honest,
I think he was bringing Stilly and Petrov into the argument, and was it Moravchik perhaps? But they were disputing what John Barnes was saying. Bobby Petr, sorry,
I'll be honest with you, Tam. I was a reporter at STV when John Barnes was the Celtic manager, and John Barnes, I would put my hand in my heart and say, was unlucky to lose a world-class striker in Henrik Larsson. That was it. To be fair, John Barnes is not saying the race card was played in his time there. What he has said as an overview is black managers don't get as much time to fail or succeed in the way some white managers do. Now, there's probably a valid case and a strong case you can put forward for that, but John Barnes, over and above that, his team were second in the league, and it just wasn't good enough. And they lost to an inferior side like Inverness Caledonian Thistle. It just wasn't good enough. John Barnes just wasn't good enough at that point to be the Celtic manager. The stature of the club, his abilities, he was obviously helped by Kenny in the background, but it wasn't enough. They didn't have a good enough team to dislodge Rangers, not by an absolute country mile. And I have watched similar people with a great career like John Barnes fail because they finished second to a Rangers or a Celtic. And the same thing's going to happen, Tam, to Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard has to win something with Rangers. And then the Rangers fans will look, they see progression right now. Celtic fans saw progression with Tommy Burns' side, but ultimately one Scottish Cup wasn't enough. Steven Gerrard this season coming up needs to win something to prove to the Rangers fans that he's got it, not to all his mates down in England who keep saying that he's going to be a sensation and a top manager and a top this. You have to do it. John Barnes' pedigree when he arrived at Celtic Park was top drawer. He was a great player. Could he become a great manager? That's the evidence of it. And he wasn't good enough
and
at that time.
I think, Peter, in the interests of fairness, I think it's only right to point out that when they lost famously in the Scottish Cup to Queen of the South, Aberdeen did stand by Jimmy Calderwood. So I think we should always remember that.
Okay, now I'm going to look here at one other thing that I want you guys to talk about. What about this team, Tam? On this day, 18th of June, 1982, have a look at the lineup, and there were some impressive players in it. Rough, Gray, Hansen, Miller, Neary, Hartford, Robertson, Souness, Strachan, Wark, Archibald. All of them. Look at the calibre of it, and I think looking at that team, maybe apart from Rough and Hartford, the rest of them, in fact, I can say with clear conviction here, Tam, the rest of them, apart from Rough and Hartford, played in a European final and in some cases won a European final. How good is that?
Well,
Peter,
McLeish,
the subs also come into it.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say. Forget the starting lineup. Kenny Dalglish was on the bench. Kenny Dalglish, for most people's money, the greatest player that this country has ever produced. Kenny Dalglish was on the bench. What does that say about the starting lineup? And I'd still love to know, Roughie, what was your? I mean, you had the perfect viewpoint of it. What was your thought? What was your immediate thought when you saw, for way back at your goal, Dave Neary putting in that rifle shot for the edge of the box?
Yeah, before I go into that, I have to put it on record that none of the club teams that I played for had the chance to win a European Cup.
Yes.
So,
that's fair, Roughie.
No, I've done interviews, Tam, and my lasting memory of that night in Seville was the humidity and the heat. I think it was about 100 degrees, and I remember when we went out to have a warm-up, before it, and obviously I'm in the goal, I'm not running about, but I was watching Graham Souness and Kenny and the boys running about in the warm-up with obviously their T-shirts on, and honestly, I've never seen so sweat in my life absolutely dripping off them just during the warm-up, and the Brazilians were walking about with not a bead of sweat on them, and they were so cool and everything, and even when we came out into the tunnel to walk onto the park when we were all standing there, the sweat was still bucketing off of our boys, and they were standing there as if it was like just a normal day. And obviously, when David Mackay scored that goal, they just upped the pace. They just started trying.
If you look back at the footage of it, actually, some of the Brazilians in the warm up were wearing gloves and snoods. They were thinking it was a bit chilly, 100 degrees. It's fantastic.
That's a really good point you brought up, because Peter brought it up as well, and a journalist brought it up to me. Kenny would never played the last two games, so against Russia as well. And obviously nobody. That's never been a debate out there, and obviously the great man's dead just now. But I would love to know the reason for that now. I'd love to know why.
Listen, there must have been a niggling injury that he was carrying. There must have been. I thought
initially it was saving him for the Russia game and obviously giving him, lack of time. But then again, he was in the Russian game. He never performed either. And if you listen to Willie Miller and Alan Hansen, they're not happy about it either. So, but I never got all that then.
Yeah, I did look at the photograph on the on the 1982 bench, and the fact Dalglish, wonderful player that he is, but he did have a broken leg and a broken arm at the time, so it was difficult for him to come on. But when he did come on with just one leg, and he's absolutely magnificent. Roughie, I've got to just ask you this question. Tam's asked you about the goal from Dave Neary, which is sensational. I mean, I can remember watching the team and thinking they were magnificent. But I looked at the Brazilians and I loved them. As a boy, I'm looking at that side. They were everything you wanted in football. I was heartbroken when they lost the World Cup to Italy going out of the quarterfinals. But I look at it, Junior, brilliant. Falcao, sensational. Socrates, just a genius. Eder, I loved. Zico was absolutely magnificent. And the goals they scored against you, Roughie, I mean, they were just top drawer, weren't they?
Yeah, they were fantastic. You know, particularly the free kick. And I've told you about the free kick. I don't have time to get around it all, but some idiot had done.
No, tell us. We'll give you time.
No,
you've got time.
I think it was. I've got a funny feeling. Andy Roxburgh was the guy who was watching Brazil and all the other games, and we were sitting in the dressing room, and Jock Stein was going through all the details about free kicks and everything, and the dossier had said that the people who are about the free kick are Falcao and Juninho, and I can't remember the other one. And I'm sitting there going, we played Brazil in the Maracana the year before, and Zico scored a free kick in the Maracana, and he went, no, you don't have to worry about him. You don't have to worry about him at all. The other three guys will be there.
Yeah.
So obviously when I'm looking at the wall and I'm looking at the people run about the ball, and sure enough, Juninho was there, Falcao was there, Socrates was there, and Zico was standing there. And I'm saying,
Tam,
don't worry about
you know what? Before you tell us about the free kick, Roughie, I don't know if you've noticed this, Tam. If he forgets the Brazilian name, he makes up a name of someone who sounds Brazilian that he's heard before. It's Junior. Juninho was about 20 years later, Roughie.
Oh, Junior.
Right.
He wasn't done.
So talk us through what was going through your head when Zico walks up. Yeah.
No, he wasn't. He just stood there. And what happened was the other two made a run, of which I got sold the dummy. So I went for the run. I went for the run, and Zico just stepped forward and just curled it into the corner. But I've said this numerous times, Peter. Even although I'd seen him hitting it, I would never have got it. It was right. I could see it was right in the top corner, off the inside of the post. I don't think I would have got it if I'd even seen it. The Eder one is a difference.
Yeah. Were you hacked off about the Eder goal?
No, because I just put that down to a fantastic ability. I'd love to. I mean, it still goes through my head. And any goalkeeper will tell you when a winger or somebody comes in on you, you know, your first thing you're taught is don't get beat at your near post. If you get beat at your near post, you'll get slaughtered forever. So that was the first thing. I narrowed the angle so he couldn't get it in the near post, and then lo and behold, I'd love to see it again. Does he just chip it? Does he? Yes. It's not one of these ones. It's not one of these ones he didn't mean it.
Oh no, he meant it. No, he meant it. I mean,
it's incredible.
Genius. He was a genius. Tam, I mean, 4-1. And I think the best line was the after-match interview when Graham Souness was asked, and he said, you know, what happened when you saw the Neri goal go in? He says, well, I just think we made them angry.
I mean, I was only 13 at the time, Roughie, but see the next day, like in the papers or whatever, or the media reaction, the 4-1, how was it seen as 4-1, that was fair enough? Was it seen as Scotland were a wee bit unlucky, or was it seen as it actually could have been more than 4 for Brazil? What was the general opinion at the time?
No, I don't think it could have been more than 4, but we were so focused. We'd already, taken into consideration beat New Zealand. We're not going to beat Brazil. Focus on the Russian game, and that's what we were focused on. That was the game. And I've never told Peter this, but we were told after the Brazil game, the Russian game wasn't for 6 or 7 days. We were told if we get anything out of the Brazilian game, well, we're all going to get £500 each, and we could go anywhere we wanted for 2 or 3 days and come back into the squad. Now, without going too far away, myself and a couple of others had decided we would go to Morocco, which is just across the road for Sota Grande, which wouldn't have been that far away, but obviously that went out the window.
Yeah, that's knowing that squad as I do, Tam. That's a Dennis Rodman moment, where Dennis says, "I need 2 days away from the Chicago Bulls, and they can't find him." So, also, John McCritchie says, "Roughie, stop making excuses." You see, even 1982, and you're still getting caned. It's unbelievable. Nicole says, "I've always heard that goalkeepers had to be a little bit crazy to be good. Does that apply to Roughie?" You're absolutely right. Listen, we've had lots of things. We've had a right good rant on the show, that's for certain. And of course, there's lots of other things that we've been talking about. Thanks to so many people who've actually put a point across here, and lots of good points. We always got the odd negative one. Criticism of us as pundits, we're happy to take it. And on Facebook, if you do enjoy the show, share it, do a watch party with your friends, like, share and follow. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. We're on Periscope and Twitter as well. Thanks to Dave Mackay, it was absolutely magnificent. What's on the agenda for you tonight, Cowan?
I'm actually doing a podcast with a young Motherwell fan who's part of the emerging group, the Banter Thieves. You'll have heard of them, Peter.
Oh, yes. Lasley likes them.
Lanarkshire band. Wee bunch of Motherwell fans in there. So Derek Watson, he does his own wee podcast. So I'm going over to Motherwell to do that tonight. It's a beautiful evening. But what I want to do, can I ask your viewers one last challenge tonight? As you know, that I'd been putting up jokes from famous faces on my Instagram at The Real Tam Cowan. Gordon Strachan's up there, Sanjeev Kohli, we've got Gary Locke, Peter, yours will be on, I think, next week. We still haven't got a joke from Roughie. So to make it easy for him...
Can I give you...
No, hang on.
Let me get... I'll give you one now.
Right.
Partick Thistle are playing in the First Division next year. That's it. That's a joke.
Well, it is because we've not actually had a First Division for about 6 years now. So you're right. And if you caught the SPL once more, I'm going to come round to your house, forget the social distancing, and stab you. All right. It's the SPFL, and the top flight is called the Premiership. All right.
No, we're changing all that. We don't care now. We're not in it.
Tom,
but anyway, are we going to watch a Texaco Cup game?
I've had 8 years of him mispronouncing names. Don't worry about it. Hey,
bloody by the way, Douglas Park, Donald Park.
Can I just say to you, Tam, sometimes we're not all lucky to have a Channel 4 producer as our sidekick. Yes. Calm your jets. It's as simple as that. You know?
Well, what's it,
Tam? You just wait. You get to 68 and you see all these things kicked in.
Aye. So you're only 1 year short of your favourite number then, aye?
Exactly, aye.
But listen, Peter, I'm challenging your listeners to make it, your viewers, whatever, the Football Show family, all right? I'm challenging them on the comment section to send in their favourite joke that they would like to see Roughie, the legend, telling on my Instagram. That's almost like a competition. So if you're tuned into this now, send in your favourite joke in the comments. We'll get Roughie to film it on his phone. He'll send it to me at WhatsApp. I'll put it up in my Instagram at The Real Tam Cowan, and that's quite a nice wee thing for a viewer today.
That is fantastic. I will now look at that, and now Roughie's thinking to himself, I wonder if my Nokia 3010 has got WhatsApp on it. But nevertheless, Roughie, I will phone you, Roughie, and tell you how to do it. Anyway, apart from that, thanks very much to lots of people who have joined us. We really do appreciate you. And if you get a chance, put a joke on there, and we'll pick the best one and get Roughie to tell it on Tam's Instagram, which is at The Real Tam Cowan. And remember, by the way, just in case you've forgotten, over the period of the 3 months since we've been in lockdown, Tam, was rational at the start of it, and then, you know, chirping and showing photographs of himself and out for walks and everything. And then he went through what I call the nutcase face, where he basically started singing songs constantly every day, and Roughie and I started to worry about him. And now my wife turned round to me the other day there and said, "How is Tam?" I said, he's now settled back into his vintage Instagram mode. So there was a tough period there, Tam, where I thought lockdown was really getting to you.
Yeah, she knows how Tam is.
and on that note,
9 out of 10.
Goodbye.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit Arnold